This episode is sponsored by Bow Lake, the most beautiful paddle boards in the world. Visit bowlake.com and learn more. That's B-E-A-U lake.com. Beau is French for beautiful. B-E-A-U lake.com.
You're listening to The Luxury Item, the podcast on the business of luxury and the people and companies that are shaping the future of the luxury industry. Here's your host, Scott Kerr.
The Amalfi Coast in Italy is, and has long been, one of the world's favorite high-end destinations. In the middle of the last century particularly, it was the escape of choice for much of the luxury yacht set. These days, it's got competition all over the world, but the fundamental attractions are still there. The climate, the geography, views, the people, the culture. 1,000 feet high on a hilltop in the town of Ravello, with a spectacular view of the Amalfi Coast, is the five-star luxury hotel Palazzo Avino. The Pink Palace was originally built in the 12th century as a private villa and has undergone many transformations over the centuries. A careful renovation started in 1997 by legendary hotelier Giuseppe Avino, then carried out by his daughters, the sisters Mariella and Attilia Avino, transformed the ancient building into the new it place to be on the Amalfi Coast. My guests on the luxury item are sisters Mariella and Attilia Avino, co-owners of Palazzo Avino. Mariella is the managing director there, and Attilia is the director of sales and marketing. They've joined me to talk about growing up in the hospitality world in this glamorous destination, taking the reins of the family business, and how they are keeping the iconic Palazzo Avino in a league of its own. Welcome to the luxury item, Mariella and Attilia.
Ciao, Scott. Welcome to Ravello.
Thank you. So the Palazzo Avino just last month officially reopened for the new season, and so starts a new chapter in the storied property. What are you especially excited about this season?
Yes, we actually opened in April, and that's what's very exciting about this coming season is that really luxury travel seems to be totally back after COVID.
Right.
So we are seeing such an excitement in the guests coming to the property, in the guests in the area, about discovering, breathing in all the sun and the beauty they can. So I think that's a very beautiful attitude we are observing, and I think it's making us smiling even more.
Yeah, and so far you're seeing a lot of people coming back. You're seeing a lot of regulars since you opened.
Yes, we do have, as a family-owned hotel here in the area, we do have a pretty high percentage of return clients. It's about 25%, which is very good. And they are even more excited to come back, but we have also new guests that are excited to discover the Amalfi Coast and Ravello specifically.
That's great. And the history of Palazzo Avino is so interesting. Can you share the history and the heritage of Palazzo Avino, which sits on a property dating back to the 12th century, and how your family first got involved in the luxury hospitality business?
Yes, so the hotel, as I always call it, the Pink Palace of the Amalfi Coast, it's a property going back to the 12th century, and it was a private villa owned by noble family from the area. They started, the Sasso family started the hospitality business in the area in a very natural way. They were hosting artists and writers that would come to the area, and then in exchange of their hospitality, they would get as a gift the paintings, the writing pieces. What happened was that year after year, then the family eventually extinguished, and the property was kind of abandoned. It became an hotel back in the 50s. And then we bought it in 1995. Actually, our father bought in 1995, and he had the vision, because the hotel was a shell of a building back then. He could see the potential, and we opened in 1997 as an hotel. And since then, and all the renovation has been a very conservative renovation. So all the whole property and the whole hotel is being built around what was the historical building. So it was more that the hotel adapted to the space than vice versa. And I think this really makes the hotel the special property it is today.
And you were both born and raised on the Amalfi Coast. When your father bought the hotel in 1997, you were both still pretty young, and this magnificent pink palace was your playground. Did you know early on that you were destined to go into the family business at some point?
Absolutely. It kind of grew in our blood, this passion, when we are three sisters. So when our father bought the hotel, I'm the oldest one. So I was 13. Then my middle sister Attilia, it was back then 10 years old. And actually on the year the hotel was officially opened in 1997, our youngest sister just born. So we actually kind of like all of us in different age frames, we kind of grew inside the hotel. And we did feel like we wanted one day to write a piece of the history of the hotel. And I joined the hotel in 2011. So it's been a while already. And Attilia, who is working as well on the property, joined the hotel 5 years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you first started, like having more of a hands-on role, like what were you doing right at the beginning?
Right at the beginning, I think for me, it was important to familiarize to the hotel, seeing it more as a business space more than a family space, because I growing up at the hotel, it felt more like a home. So I think at the beginning, the not easy part was also working and business-wise, having relationship business-wise with all the department heads, for example, that they had see me grown throughout the years. So it felt more like I was the young in like compared to them. But then after I would say like 5-6 months where we got this kind of orientation, they were my biggest pillars to learn doing and to bring my vision into the property. And this has been a treasure, like also to experience, to gain their experience, like on a day-by-day basis, and to have my vision brought to them, to be brought in front of the guest. And I think this was really key, also because back then I was very, very young. I was 26.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your role and Attilia's role at the hotel?
Yes, so I act as a managing director, and so I take care of the operations when the hotel is open. The hotel, in fact, is seasonal. We open from April until the end of October, and during this time frame, the day-by-day business is very absorbing. And when the hotel shuts down, I also work on the sales side, and I'm participating to the luxury fairs and the B2B promotional activities we do on in our major sourcing markets. Attilia is director of sales and marketing, so she travels a lot also throughout the year when the hotel is open as well. So she takes care of our major markets, and also like she travels to Australia, and she participates in all the luxury travel fairs, also the ones that take place when the hotel is open. And of course, since we are a family-run hotel, when the hotel is open, we are all in one extent involved in the operation part as well. We are very multitasking.
So what were some of the most important things you learned about luxury hospitality growing up immersed in the entire hotel experience and observing how your father ran the business? I mean, things they didn't teach you in your studies.
So what I always say, even to like young professionals joining our property, that we do work in an environment where common sense has to be key. Like there are many things that you don't really learn while you are at university pertaining this business. It's a lot what you learn on the job, and it's a lot about sensitivity towards the guest. So I always question myself when I'm not sure about how we will deal with like a new procedure or a new service we're offering, how the guest would, how as a guest I would perceive it, and how I would love to perceive it as a guest. And I think we don't work on scientific formulas. It's more about getting that very high sensitivity on what guests expect in a property like us. And I think that's the biggest learning point over the years. That common sense in its best meaning is what really is key in what we do on a day-by-day basis.
So in 2013, Palazzo Sasso changed its name to Palazzo Avino. The Palazzo Sasso had already earned its reputation as a luxury giant among the hotels along the Amalfi coast. And while your family already owned the hotel, it was reborn with the Avino name attached to it. So did the renaming also come along with a rebranding?
Absolutely. This was my first big task. We had the legal issue over the use of the name Palazzo Sasso, so we had to rebrand the hotel. We questioned a lot what was the perfect name, and actually we were so in love with Palazzo Sasso, so we could not find at the beginning the perfect name. But then we talked within the family, and we said we are three sisters. Eventually, our name will disappear. So why don't we have our family name on the property? And this was the answer. We went for it. And along with the name change, there was the rebranding of the hotel throughout, because we had the logo and the name Palazzo Sasso almost on everything, from the coasters to whatever you can think of can be branded in an hotel. It was branded. And I have to say, it was my way, in a way, to also to help me bringing my visions on the later things, because I was forced to rethink whatever we had around with the old logo and the name. And it was an occasion, an opportunity to relook at all the items and brand them back with the Palazzo Avino. Now, the best thing that happened is that when I travel for sales, or Attilia travel for sales, when I'm asked, what was the old name of the hotel? So I think that's definitely like something that makes me smile, because it was definitely a tough job.
Yeah. And so was there a new distinctive identity that you wanted to create for the namesake Palazzo Avino brand portray?
Yes, it was even more about the family identity and the family run business. So I think it was a great opportunity to tell the story that there was a family behind. That probably in the past, having also had a more like a structured approach, would have been more difficult to send the message across. Also, there was this operational side. There was this change as well in the property, because the last general manager suddenly left. And I was kind of in that position. Shall I hire a new general manager, or shall I jump into the role? So I think and I actually jumped into the role with the support of the family. And I think the fact that I was telling the story about the name change and why this had happened helped a lot to get the message through in the right way. It would have been totally different if a general manager not being part of the family would go out explaining why the family had decided so. Whereas hearing from my words and from my eyes, because everyone could understand it was not an easy decision, we were kind of forced to do it, I think it helped a lot to get the message in the right way.
So how do you think the property has evolved in the last 10 years?
My response would be more and more making it feel like a home. And I strongly believe this is very can be easily perceived now, and also from as a professional, since I started work on the property, I evolved in the way that everything I pick for the hotel, for the restaurant, or for the linens, for the towels, I always try to look at what I can source from an artisanal point of view, from artisans, not going for the big brands. And this, at the end, when it gets in front of the guest, they have a strong perception of something that's been, every item has been well thought through. and nothing can be really found elsewhere. So whatever I have designed or think for the hotel, I try to make it very unique, like that someday comes from my vision. I work with the local artisans that create the vision I have. And so I think in 10 years, from every corner of the hotel, I try to envision and make this in place in a very strong way. So compared to this to the past, I think this is very strong.
You know, it seems so many of the Italian hotels that are legendary and inspiring in the travel industry are family owned, especially in the luxury segment. What does the Italian spirit of hospitality mean to you?
We proudly bring a flag out on this. And I think also we are very lucky to be in an area here on the Amalfi Coast where the major beautiful and most iconic hotels are actually family run with strong families behind. And I proudly think this is really what makes us unique compared also to other destinations in the world. There is a very strong pride from the grandfathers to the nieces, where we are actually just the first generation, really. But I admire all other colleagues where the dream has been grown through different generations, because I do believe business-wise that's the most difficult thing to bring on. And there is something about the value of the family that's very strong in Italian culture that I think it's reflected also in the family business that we are so proud to be part of.
So how do you think luxury hospitality has changed since you entered the business?
I think it goes along with what I was saying before about the specific that pertains to each destination or each hotel. Getting away from everything that looks or can feel standardized. I think that's what more and more hospitality is about, luxury hospitality is about. And not even just luxury, I think this is really true throughout, because there are also very simple places that, because of the soul that there is inside, the owners who run the business, everyone gets so excited about. I think I don't want to use the word experience because it's been, I think, overused in our business, but in our sector. But there is a lot about breathing in what's around you. And I think my main goal is that when a guest enters the door of the hotel, has to perceive in any different touch point that we are on the Amalfi Coast, we're in Ravello, and we're in Italy. So I think that's really where the luxury sector is going.
We'll be right back after a quick break with more of my conversation with Mariella and Attilia Avino.
The most beautiful paddleboards in the world. Bow Lake. The water is calling.
We're back with more from Mariella and Attilia Avino. So the Amalfi Coast has highly coveted and limited real estate, so new hotel openings are rare there. You know, from a competitive landscape standpoint, do you just look at those set of luxury villas and palazzos dotted, along the 13 towns and villages on the Amalfi Coast, or do you cast a wider net than that?
No, I think today we do compete worldwide because there are so many accessible destinations, beautiful and amazing as the Amalfi Coast could be. In terms of the area, of course, the area we could be considered as a competitive, like a destination with different competitor hotels. But in my case, I strongly believe that that's why also I was talking about the family business in the area, that we are all properties with very strong identities. And when we do have guests staying with us, they normally combine it with the Positano, with Amalfi, with Capri. So I strongly believe all the other properties in this competitive set, they do work along with us to create the destination. So it's not a real competition. I feel like we more compete with the other destinations, maybe in Italy, they could be look like, or somewhere around the world.
Many of the competitive properties along the Amalfi Coast lean into their breathtaking views, extravagant dining experiences, architectural beauty, and elegant decor. So how does Palazzo Avino uniquely position itself from the competition?
I think it's about also each of us is we are all located on the Amalfi Coast, but each village has its own identity. So I think we distinguish each other already from where we are. Ravello, from Amalfi, from Positano, one doesn't exclude the other. And also the other thing is that all the properties, being all very historical, no one is similar to the other. So, like, for example, I strongly believe Ravello, compared to the rest of the Amalfi Coast, is still a bit off the beaten paths, even if it's been more and more discovered. But also the fact that it's high above the hill, overlooking the water, it really gives a perspective on the Amalfi Coast that you cannot get in other villages in the area. Mm-hmm. And the property itself is not very common, even on the coast, to access a property that goes back to the 12th century. There is lots of history, lots of emotional pieces that you can get just working around the property. There is, for example, in our inside little restaurant, which we don't use that much because we have such a beautiful terrace overlooking the water, but it's kind of an old riad, because the whole property has been under Arab domination, and the property kept some of the architectural features of that area. So, for example, it's like that itself, it's an architectural moment that I think is very key when getting access to the property.
So are many of your guests regulars? And what is the description of the kind of guest Palazzo Avino attracts?
We have around 20-25% of regular guests. We do, over the years, we have more and more younger clientele coming to the property. I think all the bits and pieces that over this 10 years we created in the property as experiences, they attracted more and more honeymooners, clientele looking for a very special experience in the area.
The level of competition at the ultra premium end of hospitality is unimaginably high, and it keeps getting higher. Extraordinary service and experiences quickly become table stakes as guest expectations continue to skyrocket. What are the biggest challenges that you're facing to improve the guest experience to meet those expectations and give Palazzo Avino a distinctive edge?
I think key in our sector is really service. So what we strive constantly to keep the service and to make the service better. We are lucky as a property to be able to have a very high retention rate on the employees. So this, of course, season after season allows us to keep a certain level of standard always super high. And the historical employees, they are actually ambassadors with the new ones when they come and join into the property, because it's all about our vision that over the years becomes their vision as well. So I think this is really, and of course, there are all the things you could think of, like investing in the property, making a new bar, creating a new list at the bar. Of course, these are all things we invest a lot of time on, but really at the end, service is what's really key.
How important is it to make sure that you and your family are visible throughout their stay?
We try to make a strong effort in this. So it's either me or Attilia when we have a guest coming in, a special guest coming in. We always try to also spend time with them. And also at the reception, we had our team has been here for years. So you would also have that kind of really family hug in a way when they come in. So I think that's also very important as a welcome to the property, to make them feel they're kind of at home.
So Mariella, a few years ago, you opened a luxury boutique on the property called the Pink Closet. It was designed by renowned interior designer Cristina Celestino. At the time, you said it was, quote unquote, inspired by the idea of a dream closet. What's the story of the Pink Closet?
So the Pink Closet is a little dream that came through in 2019. Actually, in front of the hotel, I always had this dream of opening a boutique for the hotel. But we do have a little pop-up inside the property, but it didn't fill the right space because it was too small for what I had in mind. So in 2018, an art gallery right in front of the hotel got on sale. And I actually said to my dad, I think we have to buy it. I'm not really sure yet what we're going to do it, but how we're going to do it, but we have to buy it. So we jumped into it. And I remember like in December, I was talking to the architect Celestino and to share my vision about the idea of creating a traveler closet accessible to the guests coming to the property. And this is how the physical space got the vision and got the start. And the idea was, since after many years of traveling throughout the winters, I always had this great passion about fashion. So everywhere I would go, I would just keep a couple of days before or after the trip to sourcing to local designers. It's been, and of course, I was also doing shopping as well. So I kind of collected so many different things, different brands, and I thought it would have been very special to be able to share kind of this selection or the selection I had done throughout the years with the guests. And this is how the idea of the dream closet came in. So this is on purpose. I don't have a selection of only Italian brands, but it's really worldwide. And since last year, actually after COVID, we started to collaborate with the Fashion Trust of Camera della Moda, which is the fashion institution in Milan, in order to have to support the young designers. So they share with me their list, the designer they support year over year, and I try to pick from their list the ones that feel more close to our vision. And we create collaborations, which are a great way to showcase these young designers and also to give our guests a selection of brands they will normally not get in bigger stores or in concept stores.
So you used Cristina Celestino again the following year when you unveiled a special capsule collection of suites and rooms that she curated. Why did you decide to revamp the rooms?
So the idea of the capsule collection was kind of a drop like you would see in fashion industry. So this was a bit the idea. In fact, we kept the number of rooms just to 7 because we wanted to have this kind of a bit more modern twist on some selection of rooms for those guests who will look for that. So it's those are rooms that have a strong ensembles about 50s Italian architectural pieces. There are lots of color games about what's outside this in terms of colors that we were able to bring inside. And so the idea is that we could also attract and entice those guests that are a lot into design.
One of the biggest challenges facing luxury brands is becoming and staying relevant for a new generation of clients. Relying on heritage alone is not enough for luxury brands to woo an increasingly younger and diverse clientele. Innovation and cultural relevance have become essential for luxury brands. How do you go about balancing conveying Palazzo Avino's rich history while also making it feel modern?
So I try to add the modern twist more in what the service is about. So whatever I introduce in terms also of decor, I'm very conservative, because I strongly believe, like, when a guest comes to a property like us, do expect that we do steps also in the design part that are very true to our history. When it comes to the services, like for example, the lobster martini bar, that's a project we pushed a bit more. Like for example, we have a selection of 100 different martinis. I had this beautiful glasses made of ceramic in Sicily that I found through a very local artisan that we are using for the special cocktails at the bar. So in that case, if you of course look at those glasses, those are a bit that modern twist I wanted to bring to the project, but it's like the bar itself and all the common areas themselves. There is nothing too pushed in that side. So I think the soul has to be preserved as it is, the soul of the property, but we can kind of play around things that are more guests can easily perceive, but they don't touch what's our soul.
So I want to talk about the popularity of the Amalfi Coast. These days, it seems like everyone is heading to the Amalfi Coast. It's always sitting on top of an annual best and gold list. Tourism is breaking all records there. This hashtag Amalfi Coast has more than 700 million views on TikTok. But popularity has a price. You read about spiraling numbers of large vehicles, including passenger vans full of tourists on the road, which at times is single lane with narrow, switchbacks, is compounding the agony of traffic during peak season, to the point where last summer, the Italian government imposed an alternative number plate system that only allows cars down the 22-mile stretch along the coastal road every other day. Has the influx of visitors since the country reopened to tourists been a mixed blessing for Ravello and the surrounding areas?
Well, I think it's true that we are a very small area where there is a very high level of tourism. So I think it's correct that we all have to try to serve the areas, the area and the areas around the more we can, in order not to have an overflow of tourism. I think as Ravello itself is affected, but not as much, because it's by definition, for how it's located, it's very difficult to access. Like for example, in Ravello, there is no opportunity for big buses to stop. So this already prevents a massive tourism to get to the area, and you don't have actually roads where these buses could go. So but for the rest of the course, of course, there's been a challenge, and I don't think the Amalfi Coast is affordable as other destinations. So still, the massive tourism that probably cities in Italy experienced after COVID did not impact as much. In our case, definitely, like for example, the alternate number plate system, it's something that has a direct and a very effective impact, because that's really key. Because the problem are mainly like the roads that get too overloaded with traffic.
So what else is new for guests to experience in 2023 at Palazzo Avino?
So we launched this year the renovation of the Infinito Suite, which is one of our top suites, that was done by a Neapolitan architect called, his name is Giuliano Dell'Uva. I chose him for this project because this is a very specific room located on the 4th floor, the only suite in that area, that has very interesting architectural corners with many arcs throughout the suite, and this duplex has a beautiful terrace overlooking the sea. And I wanted to bring that space back in time. And this is what actually we did. We even used an old floor from 600 It was very difficult to source. And the other interesting thing that we never did before, the suite itself is an art piece that was designed by Tremlett. This artist is very famous for his works on the colors. So he designed the tiles, he made a painting, and then this painting was actually transported to tiles that actually embrace the guests when they get into the suite. And having the guest kind of walking on the art piece was the idea of creating an experience in the experience. And since we have this suite, since we opened, it's been, of course, booked and loved by all the guests who were lucky to stay there. The other thing I'm very excited, the other new thing I'm very excited about is we have a new exhibition at the Café dell'Arte, which is our inside bar. It's called this way because in the past, the noble families in Ravello used to, as I say, to host artists. And this space was kind of used to showcase what they would bring. And we kind of rethought about this tradition. And we are, year after year, we have different artists showcasing in the property. This year, for the first time, we have a photographer, a photo reporter. So we have an exhibition that's about his trips to war areas, and it's been a collection of all the photographs that he thinks are more special for his work. And I have to say, I was very scared about this decision that I have made, because I thought this is a location where I'm not sure guests would want to think about this kind of black door. And instead, on the contrary, we're receiving many queries, requests, information requests, because everyone is very attracted by these images that are a bit of a triumph of resilience in a way. And I'm very glad that we were able to also add this kind of thinking process for the guests getting to the property. So that's also, and the last but not least, we launched our own wine, which is called Maraviglia. We bought last year a very beautiful vineyard next to the property. It's right in the center of Ravello, so it's very unique to have vineyards right next to the hotel. Yeah. This is the most historic part of Ravello. It's an old vineyard. And actually, there is also a beautiful garden next to it that we're already working on the project. We'll see the light next year, but we already have our own wine that is called Maraviglia. It's a DOC Costa d'Amalfi. So it's also a beautiful blend. And the name is Maraviglia. It's also very special to us because it's the blend of our three sister names. So it's Mariella, Attilia, and Vittoria. And we're very proud of it. We actually only have around 700 bottles, so it's only served on property, but it's and guests are loving it actually. So we're very proud for that.
Mariella, my final question is the luxury item question, which I ask all my guests. So if you were stranded on a deserted island and you could only have one luxury item with you, what would that luxury item be? It can't be any form of air or water transportation to get you off that island, or anything that requires mobile service so you can call somebody to get you off that island. What would that one single luxury item you would like to have with you on this deserted island?
Now I will make you laugh. I'm not really an island person, not even a sun person. So my luxury item would be a huge wicker hat, just to prevent my sun locking the sun.
No, I like that. We've had people answering with sunscreen, so that's I like that with the big hat. If Attilia is with you, what would be the luxury item that she would have?
Yes, actually, she's a lot a makeup lover. So she said, never with the lipstick, never without lipstick.
Never without lipstick, even if you're the only person on the island.
Absolutely.
I love that. Mariella and Attilia Avino, co-owners of Palazzo Avino on the Amalfi Coast, wishing you the best of luck this season. And thank you both for joining me on the luxury item.
Grazie mille, Scott. Thank you for the opportunity.
That's it for this episode of the Luxury Item Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you found this useful and entertaining, I would be really grateful if you can share it with a friend or colleague. I would love it if you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It really helps other listeners find us. The Luxury Item Podcast is a production of Silvertone Consulting. I'm your host, Scott Kerr. Until next time.